If you haven't seen the headlines, right, and people, I think I'm one of the few people that still reads a newspaper, but we're talking about unemployment at 2.7%, almost not unemployment. That's a normal transition of people. We're talking about yesterday the headlines of birth rate the lowest it's been in 30 years. It's like, oh, okay. But you know what, in 20 years, those will be our workers. Start thinking about what that means to us and what the impact is. We're building roads down to Route 28, planning out to 2040. They'll be here and ready to go. So we need to be thinking what the impacts are. What happens? Airbus today, they talked about 400 new airplanes from Dubai. What happens to those employees? Where do those get built? These are the questions we need to figure out. The rumors about Amazon HQ2, we talked about Apple as potentially moving into the region with another 20,000. CBP's moving into Loudoun County with 3,700 people. These are going to impact us. If they're not going to be opportunities for you, they may steal your employees. Right? For the folks that are here doing education workforce, think about what that means. Are we training them? How are we going to figure it out? Part of today is going to learn from the experts and see what's there. We're going to set it up. Simon's going to talk you through our presenters and our panel today. I couldn't be happier with what it is. Again, it's an investment of your time, but take this back. It's going to be recorded as well, and thank you to HCTV and Fairfax Public Access, because it's something you want to go back and think about and dwell on some of these and how to fix the problems.
So I'm going to start. Let's start with our first speaker. His name is Dave Fink. He is the VP and Regional Head of HR for North America, also known as a CHRO. Covers the entire North American region for Airbus industry. So please give a very warm welcome to Dave. Dave and I have never met until lunch, just so you know. And I have a number of questions. Hello, Dave. Nice to see you again. Thanks for coming. We have a number of questions, and if he gets them right, you'll all go home with a Mix Master Cuisinart thingy. Is that right?
Yes.
Made by Airbus Industries.
Compliments of yourself.
Thank you so much. I think that's a different show I'm in today. So, Dave, I want you to set the scene, a nice picture of what's going on in the employment market at the moment in the north. Oh, yes, good point. It should be on. It is on? Good. What's going on in the Northern Virginia region, and provide us with sort of your perspectives on recruitment, retention, and HR practices. So we've heard some very alarming statistics from John this morning, and thank you, John, for reading the newspaper. It's very helpful for us all. Unemployment record lows, birth rates low, growing demand for talent. What are your views on the market in this area, and how is it going to evolve in the coming years? And you choose the time frame.
I relate the best I can to the local market, but most of my market is across the region as a whole. But I can tell you that no matter where I look, whether it's in California, in Dallas, Texas, in Mobile, Alabama, Mississippi, the challenges are the same. So when I do speak to it, it's going to be more general, but I'll try to relate what I see here locally. Most importantly, being the discussion around Apple and Amazon, that does make me nervous. Now, we make airplanes. Most products we make fly. So we have a very unique attraction to the product. However, that's changing. So even though most of our folks, we do engagement surveys, the top thing they talk about is the product. They love the products they make. They're passionate about the industry. They came from adjacent industries usually. But as we look at and we have very high retention rates. So our folks don't leave us very much. But as I look at the next generations, there's a different attitude towards a product. And the product isn't enough to attract, in my mind, and retain the level of and caliber of talent we'll need coming out of schools. So maybe we have an advantage too. We're a global company, so we have access to global talent. We have more than 100 expatriates in the U.S. Today. Last year we started to wind down, but we built a new assembly line in Mobile, Alabama. We had 86 expats just at that site. So some of our ramp-up challenges aren't the same as you might have locally in other businesses. So we do really move people around the company globally to transfer knowledge. So today, I don't think our leadership in Northern Virginia here, which is right next door here, feels the pain. I can't say that we feel a significant issue in attracting the talent we need for a corporate office next door. However, I would say in the IT fields, software, fields, even production and warehousing, we see it and we feel it. So that's what I see locally. Across the rest of the region, we tend to be able to attract the talent we need today. But I'm convinced in the next 10 years that'll be a very different story, and I'm trying to convince my leadership to start worrying about that and start taking actions today.
So what specifically do you think the leadership and your leadership and any other leadership should be worried about?
Well, I think one is the disruption of technology, and our company has recognized that the outside world is changing far faster than we are. We are an engineering company that makes very engineered products. We know how to do that. But there are startups and new organizations, and I'll speak to one in terms of the satellite production that was very disruptive to our environment, so almost eliminating or making some of our product timelines irrelevant. So that awareness of what's happened in more disruptive business lines in Silicon Valley in particular forced us to really think about that maybe we are at risk. But again, a very proud, engineered products that we make, we didn't think it would happen that fast, but it is. We're getting disrupted. So we've even started up our own business to disrupt ourselves, so that we have an entity focused on trying to disrupt ourselves and help us think and see the future.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to be the biggest skills shortage? And we may not have covered this exactly the same way, but you mentioned this disruption. Skills and the skills shortages, where do you see that going in the next 5 years?
Well, I think it's back to digitalization. Almost everything that we do manually today will, in terms of artificial intelligence, robotics, just the tool capability that exists will automate a lot of the things we do manually today. Mm-hmm. And that'll require different skills that we don't even possess in our company today. So when I look at, even though we have very high retention rates, I predict in 10 years we'll have half of our workforce who are my generation, Generation X, or baby boomers yet perhaps, because they stay with us. However, the other half means we'll be millennial or whatever next generation. And those are two very different mindsets. And that, to me, is the biggest challenge, is how we're going to retain the people we need to retain out of necessity, but also attract a very different mindset who look for different culture, different leadership, different workplace design, different access to technology. Because today, the half of the workforce that I'm talking about who stay with us are quite happy with a BlackBerry device and an office that sits around the corner of the building, and the way it is today. So changing them is hard. At the same time, if we don't change the workplace environment, the culture, and the access to technology, we won't attract the young folks coming out of school.
So really what we're talking about is redefining work as well. So can you give me an example of what that looks like at Airbus?
Yeah, I'll use the example of about 3 years ago, our CEO, Tom Enders, in Toulouse, really was woke up to the disruption happening in the outside world, and went to Silicon Valley, took the executive committee there, toured a number of companies, Google, Facebook, a number of organizations, and became convinced that we're missing the boat. Even though we have a large R&D and CTO organization investing in technology, we weren't rapidly investing in the digital technologies, nor do we have the type of skills that were doing the disruptive activity in Silicon Valley. So we set up a company called A Cubed. And A Cubed was started with a CEO, a 35-year-old CEO from Google. And again, his job was to be disruptive. So this environment would run projects, and the projects would be focused on a technology that could be disruptive to us, valuable to our product. Number one, that would be the first hope, is we actually invest in it, build a product that could be a game changer for us. Two, it could be something that's really good, however, it's not for us, we spin it out. Or three, it could fail. And you typically don't hear the word fail when you're making airplanes or products that fly. That wasn't in the DNA of us, that it's okay to fail. We will engineer and engineer and engineer and risk-proof to make sure, because you have lives at cost. So this organization was set up to be able to do those things without those risks. They could take the risks, build a product. If it failed, it failed. We lost money, but we learned from it. And that was a mindset change of being able to try things and learn through the failure. So that organization has been in place now for about 3 years. It has two products coming out of it as we speak. One being called Voom, which is an Uber helicopter. It's being ran in Brazil. We're testing it out in Dallas, other areas as well, which is really nice when you have a very high metropolitan traffic problem. Now, there's all kinds of other barriers to overcome. But instead of just accepting the barriers there and we can't overcome it, we're pushing the boundaries to try to figure out what do we need to do to overcome the barrier. The other is Vahana, which is an autonomous taxi. Doesn't need a pilot, doesn't need a runway, automatically detects objects, including other aircraft, to gear it. Now, the public is not ready for that, just like with Tesla, aren't quite ready to get in an aircraft that doesn't have a pilot. And by the way...
Or they don't want to know.
But you know what? But the A380 aircraft, the A350 aircraft, A320s, they're robots. They don't need a pilot. They're there for their safety. They're there for in case of emergency, but those aircraft are automated completely, especially the A380, the largest aircraft in the world. So, but it's the point, I guess, that I want to make is we've started to take risks and try different things, and it's okay to fail. It's a mindset change, but it requires an investment and a realization of that. In the process, we've brought in a lot of new talent that we didn't have before, and let me tell you, that company is disruptive. From an HR point of view, I was irrelevant to them. Even though I was involved with the entire startup, the hiring of these key executives who came from very different places, very smart, brilliant people. But if you got in their way and weren't helping them with speed, you were irrelevant. So that mindset change has been important. And I chose the attitude, I'm going to learn from this instead of be upset. A lot of my colleagues were quite upset that they weren't involved in driving the traditional thinking to how this is how you should do that. So the learning, being open to learning, being open to disruption, and allowing yourself to fail but learn from it.
So we also talked during the week, and you mentioned that you have around 600 staff in the region, and you have certain programs that you're developing in order to remain competitive and to try to differentiate Airbus from other competitors. Tell us about those.
Yeah, a couple of things that have been, I would say, new. We again, they're investments, but we've partnered with recruiting firms to not necessarily to go recruit talent, but to go recruit people who are interested in working with us before they work here. And we would run workshops in Toulouse with senior executives, the most senior executives of the company, to get thinking, to bring in experts from a particular field on a problem, and just start talking about that issue and how we can approach that issue together. What was very interesting, and I attend any of the events that happen in the U.S., I typically attend. And what I heard directly from the participants, they were called by Korn Ferry, for example. That got them to answer the phone. We weren't asking them for a job. We wanted them just to, can we get their expertise and to be a network of other experts in their field to do workshops so that we can learn together. And what I heard from those folks unanimously was they loved coming just because where else can you actually have, besides a large conference, have a conversation this intimate and this detailed on any topic. So we've really leveraged that, and then typically what happens is over time, not all of them, most of them are not going to come work for Airbus. They'll tell you that up front. However, many of them have, because they see what we're trying to do. We're trying to listen, trying to hear from the outside world, and they see an opportunity to actually contribute to that. And we're generating new jobs, not jobs that didn't exist before, especially in the digital type platforms, to come in and have a very focused look at us. So somebody from Microsoft, somebody from Google, somebody from other industries that don't have any airplane background whatsoever are coming in and really showing us things that we could never see ourselves.
Which brings me to my last question about generations. You mentioned the different generations, millennials. There's possibly a baby boomer or two in the room. And there's this new generation, Generation Z. And what challenges or what's different about this generation from an HR professional's perspective?
I happen to have children that have probably taught me as much or more than anything. But what I see today, and we've started to really do a lot more internships. I'm trying to bring interns closer to me so I can hear and listen, because I just think my son's an idiot. But actually he's not. I'm learning that a lot of the things under my nose, when I was talking about A-Cubed and the disruptive business models we've created, were very different to our company. At the same time, my son, who was on his phone all the time, started out at Nova, and I realized after about 8 months he wasn't going to school anymore. And he actually launched his business case to start up his own business off of his iPhone. And I thought that was ridiculous. I could not believe he was doing this. I told him the deal was you get cut off financially. But you know what? That's 3 years ago. And today he's running a business on his own, loves what he's doing. And he told me just, Dad, look, I'm not, a school environment, a classroom environment, I can't learn that way. I learn differently. I'm going to learn through, when I want to learn something, I go learn it. I go YouTube or whatever. And it really woke me up in terms of my traditional thinking as well, in terms of what you need to have to grow and develop in the company. So one thing is I chose that attitude towards the new businesses. How do I become relevant to them in my function to enable them and help them? And sometimes that was just cleaning up messes that I knew would happen, but I didn't try to stop it. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it's really putting those millennials and Generation Y and the new generation close to you and challenge them. I have been amazed at what capability these young students have. I have an intern working for me right now who's my executive assistant, who runs he attends all of my staff meetings, he runs all of the meetings, he knows everything that's going on in the organization. He's respected by my team because I've given him opportunities to fail or to deliver. And I don't have this threshold, well, he should only be able to do this right now. I give him anything. And I have a new intern coming in next month, and I'll be giving her the same opportunities to grow. So there is a mindset change that you have to have. In Airbus, again, as a traditional engineered product organization, we tend to believe you have to have 20 years of experience before you can go do X. Right. So it's changing that and really, I would say, rapidly allowing development to happen. And we're seeing success from that.
Good. And I think that's a wonderful segue to our next guest, talking about different learning styles and differing abilities. Dave, thank you very much indeed. Please take a seat. Our next guest is Clay Worley, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief HR Officer at NCI Information Systems. Come on up, Clay. Hello again.
Hey.
Hi. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You managed to digest all your lunch?
I did.
Excellent.
And
good.
I'm dry and warm and life is good.
Yeah, good. Wonderful. Good. So we're going to talk about the demand side of the HR equation. And in a moment, we're going to flip and talk about the supply side. So as a company that is a net in demand of
Yes.
talent, I was reading your bio, thank you for sending it to me, over 30 years of experience in the HR field. How does the current market that we're seeing today compare to what you've seen in the past? And what, in your views, are the challenges, the key challenges that we, as different types of companies, need to be prepared for?
Right. Yeah, I've got to fix that bio. I don't know where that 30 years came from. I'm only 37 years old, so.
That's right. Oh, that's what I read.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
The good and the bad thing about having a lot of years of experience is that you see the cycles. So, business operates in cycles, labor market factors operate in cycles. So we've seen some of these cycles before. We're in a cycle right now where talent is hard to find. It's hard to find the right skills. It's hard to hang on to people. We have seen those kinds of markets before. I think the downside of having that kind of, the good side is you've seen that kind of cycle, you know it's a cycle, you work through it. The downside is this is not just another one of those cycles that you sit back and say, let's let it ride and this too shall pass. So we've got to start thinking differently as businesses. So you talked about learning styles, we talked about generational differences. But, one of the things that I work with my HR team on is that HR has to understand what's going on in the business. And sometimes we struggle with our business leaders who don't even understand what's going on in the business and understand what's going on in the market. So, things like one of the things we're working on right now is how do we identify the critical skill sets that are going to be required in the future. So, we're used to, especially in a government contracting arena, okay, and I think you said the same thing. Yeah, okay, I need an engineer. I'll go find an engineer. That's what I need. Well, now today, the engineers that you're looking for don't have the skill set that what you need from a strategic business standpoint. So it's very important for our HR organization to understand what those trends in the marketplace are and be closely aligned with the business so that we are supporting that talent. That whole talent process. I tell my team, we really should change our name from the Human Resources Department to the Talent Management Department. Because we are, and especially for my company, again, government contractor, we're an IT services organization. The people are my source of revenue. So my entire company is about talent. It's about finding it, it's about retaining it, it's about training it, and making sure that we're meeting our customer mission.
I agree with that. Talent management is no longer standing on the stage performing
Right.
Elvis Presley type of thing. That's different, isn't it?
Totally.
Totally.
Similar in some ways. But
Yes. So what practices do you find to be successful in finding the right staff, developing them, retaining them, retraining them? What do you do? What do you do well?
Again, one of the key focuses that we have is first of all identifying what are the critical skill sets, and that comes from sitting and having long strategic conversations with the business leaders about what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on in the business. For us, for example, we're a 29-year-old IT services company. We have a big chunk of our business is the standard, IT integration, IT service desk, that type of. But a key strategic area for us is moving into artificial intelligence. So the whole skill set around artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence combined with the data analytics and combined with the cybersecurity issues creates a whole new set of skills that we've got to be looking for. So it's first identifying those skill sets. Then we focus on making sure that we've got the right data to know where do we need to go to be looking for these people. So we've introduced an entire organization within HR that's doing nothing but data analytics. So was talking with the gentleman at our table about the labor market analysis. That is so critical. And every deal that we do now, that we pursue, we actually have a talent strategy, and we go out and we do labor market reviews to say, okay, these are the skills that we're going to need. This is what the supply side looks like based on what we're seeing in terms of jobs that are posted, based on schools that are filling those funnels, based on our competitors that we're going to try to poach people from. And then it's about creating the right employee experience for people. So employee experience is one of our top priorities. Employee experience, which leads to employee engagement. One of the things that we found looking at our data is we were losing an awful lot of people in the first 3 months of bringing them on. So all this work and effort and money that we were spending to go find these great people, and I'm losing them in less than 3 months. Something's really wrong there. That's a huge financial drain.
Who are you losing them to?
We're losing them to various people, and that's part of the data that we're digging into now to better understand. But when we look at the trends of what we're seeing in the data, it's about how we're engaging the employees, how we're onboarding the employees. What is their first experience? Again, we're a technology company, so when they come in and they're faced with, okay, go sit in that corner and fill out this set of paperwork. It's like, really, you're going to hand me a ream of paperwork to, how do I go do this while I'm, on my way to the soccer game? I can do this on my phone. So, being able to meet people where they are in terms of the technologies that they're using. Then the other piece is making sure that we are demonstrating some career opportunities and career paths. And I keep harping back to AI, but artificial intelligence is one of those things that, at least for our employees, it's caused quite a bit of panic. It's a big push for us. We've got some strategic partnerships. We actually have a product called SHAE, which actually stands for Scaling Humans Through Artificial Intelligence. So our story there is this is not about replacing humans. There was an article recently in the Harvard Business Review that talked about 1.8 million jobs are going to be displaced from artificial intelligence. But if you keep reading the article, it also talks about it's going to create 2.3 million jobs. So we've got to be working with people now to talk about, okay, these are the repetitive administrative tasks that we're going to be taking off of your plate. And these are the skill sets that we need to be teaching you so that you can move forward as AI takes over some of that lower level stuff. So.
Great. Where are you finding your staff? We have a gentleman from Northern Virginia Community College going to be talking soon. We've got people in the education system here. Where are you finding your talent? Are you finding them in this market? Do you have to go and compete with the other markets in the country?
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of cone of silence, or what I say here stays here, because one of the challenges that we're having right now is helping our leadership understand that for years and years and years in the government contracting arena, we just went to the next table over or the next building over, or we did a whole lot of badge flipping. And that, there's still a lot of that. But the talent that we're looking for is not just found in other government contractors these days. It's in banking, it's in the financial system, we have a whole business area around fraud detection and fraud prevention. So again, there's all kinds of data science skills. So we're competing with a whole lot of different people. And quite honestly, one of our challenges is helping the leadership understand we need to start looking in different places. So that's why we started building these talent strategies every time we go after a new deal. Let's sit and let's have, very pointed conversations about what the talent needs are going to be. Let's talk about where we're going to get them, because, and I actually used this line in a meeting. It's like, I'm sorry, but posting requisitions is not a talent strategy. And that's what our managers do. This is great, and we're going to bring on 200 more people, and I'm posting requisitions. It's like, well, good luck with that. You be sure and call me and let me know how that works for you, because that's not a strategy. So we're doing things like, looking at labor markets. We're beginning to have conversations with educational institutions about where can we start to get some of those feeder pools. I will tell you, we're way early in that process, and that is a concern of mine.
Okay, good. And everything you just mentioned has been forgotten already.
Thank you.
That's good for confidentiality purposes. I remember actually coming to this country 20 years ago, and I went through my first onboarding or orientation, which entailed walking to another building I'd never been to before and filling out a set of life insurance forms. That was the first thing I did, for a lot of money. And that was it. That was my onboarding. And I began to wonder, why? Are they going to immediately get rid of me? So
it's a tough job.
It is a tough job, yes. And that was in banking. Okay, Clay, thank you very much indeed. You're also a representative of the HR Alliance. We're going to come on to that in a minute.
Great.
So please have a seat.
All right.
Would either of you like... And now we're going to move to the supply side. And please, would you welcome Francie Youngberg, who is our VP of External Affairs at Melwood. Hi, Francie. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming back. Francie was here for the CSR discussion and actually walked away with one of the key raffle prizes, I seem to remember. Very nice. So you bring a totally different perspective to this discussion, which I'm very keen to explore. So let's start with Melwood itself, just for the benefit of people in the room who may only have heard a few commercials about cars and things. But tell us what Melwood is and what areas of the community does it serve?
Thank you, Simon. I'm guessing that many of you in the room probably have donated a car to Melwood or have heard about our car commercials on TOP or have seen our commercials on NBC4. But Melwood is really a lot more than that. We are the largest employer here in the greater Washington area of people with differing abilities. I joined Melwood about 6 months ago. I came from the Obama administration, and I worked as the Deputy Assistant Secretary at HUD. And that was one of the first times I've actually met a Melwood employee, because she was part of the custodial staff who cleaned the offices at HUD. And for many people in this region, they might not know that Melwood actually is in about 65 federal contract sites in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And if you think about the people in the room who said they were either nervous or terrified about workforce development, this is another source that many people in this region are not really looking into or thinking about. And when you think about Melwood, we've been here for now 55 years. This is our 55th anniversary. So they've shown the way of being able to employ people with differing abilities and for them to succeed. So for example, when they go to these federal contract sites, we have people that start from the beginning of somebody who has an interest in different jobs. And once we do the job exploration, then they actually train them on that particular job, and then they help them as they look for placement. So we have two kinds of job. We have the Ability One contracts, which are the federal contracts that I spoke about. We also have the community employment services, where it's out in the community and it's a competitive integrated employment that we're looking for. And so when we have our folks who are getting trained, we start with them from the job exploration to the training, to resume writing, to mock interviews. And then if they're fortunate to get the job, we also help onboard them so that we can talk to them about how they get from their home to their workplace. And once they're in the workplace, we also continue to support them. And that's why we're successful. We have 1,400 people that we employ in this region, and 800 of them are people with differing abilities. So I'll step back, and if you look around the country, 19% of people have a disability in this country. But you look at how many of them are employed, and it's less than 18%. And only about 5% of people in this country actually have had experience working with someone with a differing ability. So when you look at those numbers, and you can see that we have 800 people with differing abilities in all these different sites around the region, we're also able to not only get them the job, support them during the job, but also help to train them to become leaders. So out of about 75 of the leads in these various sites, about 23 of them are also people with differing ability. So we really are very devoted to not only the hiring, the retention, but also the promotion of our folks. So when you think about your hiring needs, you should be thinking about Melwood, but we'll still take your cars.
And they're outside. We have the keys already. So you have 1,400 staff in 65 contracts, predominantly government contracts. But I understand you're expanding your business and testing new markets with private sector. How are you doing that?
Since I came to Melwood, one of the most important things for our CEO is really to think about the possibilities for people with differing abilities. You can imagine that when Melwood was created 55 years ago, it was really a family who were trying to find a vocation for their children. So they started with horticultural, and they started growing plants, and they sold them. And so now, even where I work at headquarters, there's 4 greenhouses, and we still continue to grow the plants. And then you probably have seen us in the many plant sales in the area, National Cathedral, Westminster, Leesburg Festival. So you see that. We have custodial, we have landscaping. We also have total facilities management, and we have document conversion. You'll see some of the services that we provide in the handouts that you have at your tables. But the expectations of the families and people with differing abilities have changed over the years. So we are now looking at fast forward into the future. So one of the other areas that we're exploring is how do we partner with a lot of the private sector companies who are really making an effort in hiring people with differing abilities. So for example, CVS has 9 mock stores in this country. And what they do is they train people with differing abilities in a mock store before they put them in a real store. So we partner with them, and now we have a cohort of 21 people with differing abilities who are now going to go through the program, and they're going to be able to get trained and also get placed in externships in one of the 1,200 CVS stores in the area. We're also looking at MGM. When we went to them, they said, you know, Francie, we have a hard time retaining our people. The first year, they had over 75% people. That's a huge turnover rate. Because apparently people didn't realize that they were an entertainment industry. So you had to work 24 hours a day. You didn't get, you know, Christmas, Easter. You had to work weekends. And so they realized that our workforce is one of the most loyal, and they show up on time. They love getting a paycheck, and it's a real sense of pride for them. And so now that they're looking at having some of our folks shadow the people who are in the slots area, in uniform services, in different parts of MGM. So hospitality is another area that we're looking at. But we're very interested in the next set of this. So that's why we've been partnering with the George Washington University, the Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disorders Institute, so that we can take a look at some other ways that our folks can be better employed in computers, in cyber, in different things that we have never explored before. We're also looking at construction, at home care, at certainly customer service. So that is the future of many of the people that have differing abilities, but it also gives a point of reference. When you look around your families and the people that you know, there are many kids who are on the autism spectrum. So now you think about what their future looks like, and I hope that that is really an inclusive workplace where every one of us is going to be encouraged to reach our potential.
Absolutely, thank you. Just a couple of tiny little data points. So there are quotas, I believe, for certain types of companies to hire persons of differing abilities. Is that the private sector or the government sector? And if so, what's the difference?
So there's been, when I was part of the Obama administration, there was actually a goal setting. It's not a quota per se, but it is certainly a target for government contractors to be able to reach 7% of their workforce to be disabled workers. And starting this year, EOC has all the federal agencies looking at how they are going to come up with a plan to increase the number of disabled workers in the federal agencies to 12%. So when you look at disabled workers, what does that really mean? Many of you know physical disabilities, developmental, you know, we have intellectual, and we also have people who have suffered, have had a brain trauma injury. Like for example, another part of Melwood is the Melwood Veteran Services. And we also provide services to veterans and active soldiers who have had some type of injury, and we have a 1-week intensive retreat for them. So this is an example of when we take people who are in a process of healing, and then we also have the second part of this is the Vets Ready to Work, which is part of Linden Resources. It's a company that we acquired in Virginia this year. And what it does is that it gives a pathway for someone who is suffering from PTSD, who's had a brain injury, to go through a healing process through their own pace, and when they're ready, we are able to put them through Vets Ready to Work. And again, the same phase of helping develop the jobs, getting them onboarded, and getting them employment. So when you're looking at those goals of 7% and 12%, that is a goal that can be met with the people with differing abilities and also with some of the vets whom Melwood has been helping. And this is a really, we found out recently that some of the population in the, among our veterans are really women who have experienced military sexual trauma. And this is a phenomena that we're now getting many more of them that want to go through our Operation Tejido retreat so that they can get back to a normal life and be able to become employed again in the future. So that's the range of services that we provide.
Wonderful, wonderful programs. I spent some time looking on the website yesterday. If you should too. The Operation Torpedo is inspiring. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you again. Thank you. And last but no means least, we have Alex Cooley, who is going to wrap it all up with some really exciting data. Right? I'll try. So Alex is the Labor Market Research Manager at Northern Virginia Community College, and thank you so much for joining us. Here's your mic. Let's start with you. What is a Labor Market Research Manager, and who are you? What's the role you're playing in connecting the pipeline of students emerging from NVCC and all these staff-hungry companies we have here?
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out. No, I'm just kidding. So basically what I do is I'm kind of like a market research manager. You see those at private companies. They study consumer markets. So I'm really looking at the job market and trying to figure out what you guys are looking for in terms of education, skills, and bringing that back to Nova and making sure that what we're doing is setting our graduates up for success. We want to make sure that going back to the talent pipeline, K through 12, Nova, past Nova, so George Mason, other universities, we want to make sure that we're training students for the jobs that are here. You will notice Nova doesn't do a lot of personal enrichment classes like a lot of community colleges do. We don't do a lot of the trades. We focus a lot on IT, on healthcare. We want to make sure that when our graduates are finishing their programs, they have a job locally that they can easily obtain, and trying to strengthen the economy that way.
And that's actually the challenge, which we're hearing, is there may not be jobs locally. So who are we competing with in this country? Who are the main other markets that you're seeing coming into this?
In terms of economic development?
Yeah, taking your students.
So Washington, D.C. is very good at attracting college graduates. We're actually number 2 in the country for attracting recent college graduates. The problem is they all leave when they turn about 26, 27. They want a family. They can't afford to live here. And they're getting job offers in other parts of the country, secondary markets, places like Atlanta, places like Denver, places like Nashville, even like Richmond, Raleigh, Durham. So it's not that we're having a problem bringing them here initially. I think the problem is keeping the mid-level talent. And you kind of see that if you're looking at patterns of people moving in, people moving out. A lot of our migration out is the 30 to 45-year-old demographic, whereas we're getting a lot of people in that are the recent college graduates. In terms of, markets that we're competing with on an economic development scale, Amazon HQ2 kind of laid that out pretty perfectly in terms of our technology services industry, the top 20 list that you see. Probably our biggest competitors, Silicon Valley and California, New York City, and even some of these secondary markets that you're seeing where IT jobs weren't really a big thing maybe 10, 20 years ago, but places like Atlanta, places like Charlotte, places like Raleigh that are really kind of up and coming in those professional services jobs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Alex brought a crystal ball with him today, very kindly. I want you to look into that, and I want you to tell us that what skills are in demand now, and using this crystal ball, what are the skills that are going to be in demand in, say, 5 years from now?
So what we're hearing the most from employers is the soft skills. We've all kind of heard it, the intangible skills, the skills that won't get you the job, but the skills that will get you fired from the job. So communication, writing, research, how to work with people, critical thinking. Those are, I think, there's still a problem. There's still a disconnect between the generation coming out of the education system now and adapting to the work environment. Part of that is a lot of students don't have work experience before their first job. So they're coming out of college and their first job is their first job ever. So they're late or they can't do simple things that we think is, it should come naturally. So I think that's the biggest skill issue that we hear from employers. And the unfortunate thing is there's not a good curriculum to teach this. There's not like a standard across the board curriculum that everyone's signed on to say, if you pass this, course, you are ready to go to work and every employer is gonna want you because you know how to, write emails and do things like that. In terms of technical skills, we hear a lot from employers that they're not so much as concerned about the technical skills. They will train because a lot of the contractors, a lot of people are having a really hard time just finding talent in general, but they're not going to train people on how to work with people or how to think critically, work in teams, but they will kind of train. If they need a Java developer and somebody knows Java, they'll kind of train them up and skill them up. So I think the soft skills issue is the problem now. I think it's going to continue to be the problem for a while, and really just teaching how to adapt and how to learn. So when new technologies are invented, when softwares change, softwares, come in and out of favor, making sure that people are able to learn those new softwares.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who has the first question?
Yes, is my only response. Yes, we want it all. Yes, we are incredibly impatient. I think it is indicative of the pace of our area, of our particular markets. I think it is also part of the short-sightedness, because people are just now beginning to realize that, the purple squirrels with wings and, exactly one horn really don't exist. So, what are we going to do to get there? What's our 80% solution? So, what we are trying to do internally is make sure that we're having the right conversations with our hiring managers and with our line and making sure that we're working with them to help set expectations. And again, the more we can use data, and when we have a talent strategy and when we have some data about the labor market, it's a little easier for them to show them, here's what our labor market survey says is out there. So the fact that you want this purple squirrel with, two wings and one horn, great. I'd love to be young and skinny again. But, the data says, this is what we can do. So what are we going to do to what's our plan B? So that's when we can start having conversations about, okay, what do we have that's an 80% solution and we can train for the rest. But, otherwise, I don't think there is an easy answer to that other than, yes, we're customers and we want it. We want it all.
And just to follow on from that, Clay, to what extent does your talent management strategy include some of the softer skills that Alex referred to?
Yeah, quite honestly, not enough yet, as much as it needs to, because again, the nature of our business is we're very focused on we have to have these 3 skill sets and these 2 certifications, and that's exactly what we need. So, they are so worried about getting those things checked off the list that they're not necessarily thinking yet about the soft skills. I would say the talent organization is thinking about that, but we've got to do a better job of consulting with our hiring managers and line managers and helping them understand the need for that.
All right, good. So,
first of all, that's actually incredibly interesting and something that Airbus is active in the communities, and I'll use Mobile, Alabama as an example because we have over 400 people there today. We started that facility 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and we thought we would have difficulty in attracting the talent we would need to, especially experienced talent to build aircraft. So we did have to depend on a lot of expats for a period of time. But now we're going to be ramping up that site even larger. And it's going to quadruple in size over the next 3 years. And as a result of that, we will quickly tap out the available talent. But one of the things that is important to us is having a pipeline for the future. And we can't just keep, one, we'll exhaust the local talent, number one. Two, we will have to move talent in, even for production. But if we don't start in the education system early and get students interested in in aerospace and be able to work in Mobile, Alabama at that factory, that is the future for us. So we are doing a number of things, including sending our employees and volunteers into the school system. We have a strong partnership with the local school, with the universities in Alabama as well. But what the most unique thing we're doing is we're building what we call an experience center, an education center. And the public, including schools, students, can come. We can't tour them through our plant necessarily when we're producing aircraft. But we can give them the experience and show them exactly how it's done in an experience center we're building to do just that. So that's one of the things and we have one in DC as well too, by the way. In downtown DC, we have an experience center there where people can come in, see what Airbus is doing in the region, sorry, in the US. And the intent is to do more marketing about what we do and get people interested in our industry, because we feel like we're going to start losing that focus. And again, the earlier you get to a student making a decision, the more likely we'll have a pipeline.
Thanks for that question, John. When you look at people with differing abilities, we start out when they're kids. And as you very well know, there's a lot of support that's provided to them by the school system. But what Melwood focuses on is the transitioning youth. So when you're 18 to 22, and at 22, what do you do? Where do you go? What kind of vocation will you have? How do you find employment? And it's exactly what John was saying, that is the period in their lives where we can make a difference, and we have people who then do the job exploration with them, figure out what they're interested in, and then try to put them on a certain track. Not everybody can be employed. So for some of the people that we serve, they end up in our day activities, which is also great because they're in the community and they're learning a lot. But it's very individualized. That's the one common theme that I've seen in Melwood, that I've been there for 6 months. And one of the big emphasis for them is the soft skills that Alex was talking about, so that we really focus on making sure that the people that are going to be working have those soft skills, so that when they get into the workplace, they have a chance to make friends and to be able to perform well. So the other side of this is the corporate readiness, because you don't necessarily have a workplace that is going to be prepared to work with people with different abilities. So that's the other side of the coin that we also work with.
So does that mean, Francie, that you actually can help other companies understand how to adapt to accommodations in
Yes,
the
so there's two types of accommodations. There's what you all know, like physical accommodations. So if somebody has physical disabilities, they're going to need some technological assistance. And you can see when somebody is visually impaired. But if somebody has had PTSD, somebody has an intellectual developmental disability, it's not always apparent. And so that's where Melwood, again, can be helpful to the companies in being able to figure out, first of all, how to make your workplace more inclusive, and also to be able to get the other employees in your workplace to understand how to interact. And we also train the people that we put into those workplaces so that hopefully they have a very good working environment.
Good question, John. And I have to agree, I was a bit skeptical myself because there's some hype around having a kegerator and coffee and do skateboarding across. I saw all this. But there is an ecosystem and a mindset. And it's hard to create that. That mindset was not in Toulouse. It was not in Hamburg. It was not in DC. And the talent that's there are used to this ecosystem of speed, disrupt what's possible. And instead of all the reasons why you can't do something, there's a million reasons why we can, and they collaborate even outside of their own company to get ideas. So 3 things really positive came out of that. One was we're producing an aircraft in 24 months. develop and produce and fly. It takes 10 to 15 years in any of the aircraft we've ever done. So speed was number one. The second thing is that we've generated 3 other businesses as a result of it. So one being Airbus Ventures. We're actually seed funding entrepreneurial ideas. So they're very early. The entrepreneur doesn't have a lot of perhaps cash. They're looking for private equity or other investors. We're actually, if we like it, we're actually trying to grab it really early, accelerate it, and develop that into something that Airbus can use. The third thing is we're finding new services. So again, we have airplanes as our core business, but for example, we have a company created called Aerial. It's in Atlanta now, and it started by taking data that our aircraft actually generates. So we have satellites. We do a lot of the Google Maps you see is done by an Airbus satellite. We have aircraft, helicopters, airplanes that are always generating data. So for example, with the hurricanes in Houston, we were able to take all before the event data from satellites and aircraft, fly any platform, a drone. We can take a drone, very, very low cost, and get imaging real time of what's happened. As a result of that, we have contracted with insurance carriers now to inspect railways, to inspect utility power lines, to inspect aircraft, and of course for natural disasters. But you think about insurance company having to send somebody out to your roof to inspect your roof. You don't need that. You can fly a drone, have an immediate image. So again, it's ideas that were not coming out of Toulouse. They were not coming out of a large, very well-funded CTO R&D organization. In a matter of very, very quick time, we generated new ideas that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Yes.
Oh, just a quick answer. My answer is way less sexy than his because we're in government contracting. But you know, one of the hard things that we had to do a long time ago was come to the conclusion, we're not going to compete for talent with Silicon Valley to a certain degree. So we have to capitalize on the things the advantages that we do have. So probably 60 to 70% of our employees are actually on government sites. They sit with their customers. So our folks are incredibly dedicated to the mission of our customers. So if we can leverage that mission and then do the things that he was talking about in terms of driving innovation and driving the ability to learn and grow and develop, but it's much more constrained in a government contracting area. But you still have to compete against that expectation, if that makes any sense. So.
Please.
Yeah, so I think we hear that a lot with graduating seniors. Even at Nova, our graduates, a lot of our degrees are designed to be terminal degrees where they wouldn't have to go to a 4-year to be employable. And we're finding that they are having difficulties finding those jobs, but we know the jobs are open, right? So when you examine the labor market, we see that places like NCI are trying to hire people. So it's really that disconnect and making sure that we do a better job as an education system of making sure those graduates are exactly what the company is looking for across all kind of program areas, not just your IT and your technical, which is what we're kind of focused on in education right now, is getting those jobs kind of squared away, but making sure that, all of our programs of study, the liberal arts and the sciences and different things, are preparing the graduates for the jobs. So they are out there, so we can talk about some search strategy, but yeah, so I think really transforming the education system, because at the end of the day, businesses move at a much faster pace than education historically has, and we really need to get out of that mindset of go to college, figure out what you want to do there, you'll be successful, just go to college, where there's a lot of people that are way more successful than me with, no degrees and making a lot more money, and I'm like, ooh, if I had known that, maybe I would have, done an IT route instead. So yeah, I think it's definitely a bigger conversation.
So I'll jump in on that one. Security clearances, yes, absolutely critical. there are a couple of things. As I told my kids when they were in college and who did not listen to me and did not get internships where they could have gotten clearances, that's an important first step, but not everybody can do that. I think it's incumbent upon companies like ours we've got to be really creative in how the clearance process just takes longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's still getting longer. We've got to be creative. We were just talking today with a company that actually has created a lab where they can do some really cool technology things in an uncleared environment, but that it feeds into the cleared environment. So it gives them an opportunity to put people onto billable work while they are working through the clearance process, which sometimes can seem a little bit interminable. So, it's some of the creative things like that we've got to be able to do, because, the industry has been struggling with this for years and years and years on how quickly you can get that. And it's a huge barrier.
Thanks.
So just to speak to question one, we are doing some work at Nova with clearances. It's very difficult, but we are in talks with companies to figure out how do we get a graduate from Nova or from George Mason a clearance at graduation. What can we do in terms of internships to make that easier? So we're in the process. I can't disclose the companies that we're working for because it's not been officially announced. But coming soon, hopefully we will figure it out how to have a clearance and a diploma at the same time, because that would be, I'm sure Clay would really enjoy that, and he would
Sign me up.
Yeah, be coming to get some graduates from Nova. And then speaking to your point about the summer jobs, I actually worked in like a Parks and Rec kind of job when I was in college at the summer when I came home. So I think giving students opportunity to really kind of explore what they're interested in, if there is opportunity, say if they're an accounting major, to have them do some accounting type of work, or if they're interested in IT, to maybe have them look at some IT problems that maybe you have within the office, but really just kind of connecting their interest or their degree programs back to what they're doing, even if, it can't be a lot. Maybe they're an accounting major and they want to be a lifeguard. Maybe there's not a lot they can really do that relates to accounting, but if there are opportunities for that, kind of giving them that meaningful work experience, so when they're talking about it in a job interview, they can speak to some things that they've done that relate to the job they might be applying for, that's their first full-time position, other than a resume that says they were, a lifeguard, and they have no way to relate that to a job as a data analyst or something.
Is that right? We just decided.
Well, I guess I'll speak to the data, the predicting, and still trying to figure it out, but all I can do is make some assumptions based on what I'm seeing in terms of trends. And I have people focused on it. So before there was nobody really focused on that. So I'm trying to build the data, put it in front of our leadership to get really alignment, and I guess because I don't think our leaders really see or hear. I hear it everywhere I go. The conversation's happening today. I hear outside the company, but it's unfortunately more rare for me to get outside anymore because I'm so focused on the internal business. Now, all leaders are that way. So coming out and speaking to others, experiencing hearing about the same challenges we're having, and just doing this, by the way, is a really good thought provoker to see if you're heading in the right direction, because I don't think no individual company will solve this. There may be some other support needed, but right now I don't have any magic bullet, and I'm just trying to lay out what I think will happen. Doesn't mean it will, but I'm constantly checking that. I'm seeing very short spurts of data that actually trend exactly along the line, so it brings more credibility. But like said before, having you got to have data to prove your points, especially when I'm presenting in front of engineers.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. It's data, 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 and no, we don't have it right now. And so there's a whole lot of, gosh, I think, or gosh, I feel, or we've got a problem, let's go solve it, and 12 people go solve it, and they have 15 different solutions, and none of them are the right ones. So we are, next month, we are rolling out our workforce intelligence tool that will pull data from a bunch of different systems, and it's going to, and you can tell I am a data freak. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not really good necessarily at using it, but I got to have the data. I got to have something to think about. So we're actually going to have data, and it's actually going to give us the ability to do some predictive analytics. So what's going to happen from a retirement standpoint? When I put this input in terms of the skill sets that I need as we go through, really look for big data and cyber and artificial intelligence, what do I need to do? And then I think you ask also about artificial intelligence. So as we said, I have 3 computers sitting in the HR department who are busy with Shay, who is our AI bot, who is helping us move all of we just implemented a new learning management system. And the team came to me in a panic and said, it's going to take us, I don't know, something like 30 years for us to transfer all this stuff over. So we said, okay, what's an easy way to do this? We actually have a bot that's doing that. So we're looking at the use of AI for onboarding, for our training and development administration, for leave administration, and for sourcing. So we have a couple of different pilot projects. So AI is going to dramatically change the workforce going forward.
So we are going to now wrap this up, and I'm going to ask each of our contestants to wrap it up in one word. Dave, what is your word?
Change.
Agility.
Francie? Potential.
Data.
Data.
See, I knew you were going to say that, so I didn't use data.
Yeah. I was actually thinking change at first. They communicated somehow. And I would like to thank, we're a little bit over time, but I think I wanted to let the questions keep going because we had some very, very, very good questions. Thank you to Dave, to Clay, to Francie, and to Alex. Oh, wonderful. And thank you to you, and we will see you on July the 13th for our next Inner Word Luncheon, which is opioid, Friday the 13th. Thank you. Goodbye.
It seemed to me obvious that any development should have its functional facets, but it also should have a fun, beauty, fantasy.
There's sculpture that's sophisticated for adults. There's sculpture that's playthings for children. And they're sculptures for different tastes, and yet they all belong, and they all have a place. They're all fixed in situ in the environment.
Modern sculpture tended to be misunderstood. We felt that if we could take sculpture and make it useful and engaging, and especially make pieces of sculpture that had another role to play aside from being sculpture, we might succeed in making people love it more.
Reston is a very unique place. It has a really great tradition of public art and an approach to public art that was really ahead of its time in terms of integrating art and urban design and architecture and having the artists work really collaboratively on the design of public spaces.
It isn't that we had a piece of architecture built or someone did, and then we went out and bought art, to decorate it. Not that at all. We, the designers of the buildings and the builders of the place, together worked out the sculpture and the art. so that the sculpture and the art are very integral to the form of the buildings and the materials and to the concept of the whole thing. When it came time to think about the idea of let's have some sculpture, Gonzalo Fonseca was an obvious choice. He had worked for me before. He also knew Rosant, and so we were all kind of part of a family and friends, you know.
My father did this portrait of me during the time he was doing Reston. And so while he was doing these monumental projects, he found time to do this portrait. Father was born in Montevideo, Uruguay. He did attend 2 years of architectural school. Then he met Joaquin Torres Garcia, who was that great modernist, painter, thinker. He began experimenting with all kinds of sculpture, influenced by architecture, history of architecture, antiquity of all kinds, plus his modernist, constructivist training. I think Reston may or may not be the first instance, but it certainly is the most important instance of his kind of breaking into his own idiom. His work certainly was the result of so much digestion of great art together through the prism of his own understanding of modernism and his own incredible imagination. My father used to say that his work involves serious play. They're spontaneous and they're things to discover, hidden things, just the sort of thing that children love. Father was almost oblivious to the art world and yet supported himself, and his goal was to make the minimal, to keep going. Just before he died, he said, a lot of people want fame and fortune, I want time. It's the kind of man he was, the kind of artist he was.
Gonzalo Fonseca and my dad would go out to the beach, both in Italy and in Long Island, and they would do sand sculptures. And we had, little trowels and things. And these aren't like sand sculptures that kids make. These were pyramids. These were incredible creations, and they'd compete on the sand and do beautiful little steps that would circle a building. And when we, as kids, would go to Lake Anne after it opened, after it started, and see the sculptures, it was like walking into life-size sand sculptures. They were out of our imaginations of what my father and Gonzalo had built on the sand.
The fountain in the center of the plaza is designed as a play fountain in a way, so that kids of all ages really would not think of these things as sculpture primarily, but appeal to them more as something they played with and that made fun with water.
It's a fun sculpture, and it makes the plaza full of laughter. Public art was essential in creating a public space. The shape of the plaza brings people to walk around it. The fountain invites kids to play. It's magical how it coalesces the whole plaza.
Between Rosant and Fonseca, we really got public art where we wanted it. Community is what it's all about. Community is the interaction of people. That's my definition of community. I don't know if anybody else likes that definition, but I think it is. Community is interaction, and plazas are designed to foster interaction.
To create Reston Town Center, we knew we wanted something different. It's not very often you have the ability to put in the center of a city, in essence. We had to do something that was very special and that attracted people's attention right away. We knew within the first few months of our planning back in '81 that a fountain was essential.
In 1989, I was proposed for a competition to make a fountain. They have few artists who proposed, and I made my proposal, which was very extravagant and very expensive also. But they went for it, and it was one of the greatest adventures. I made this precise model for the fountain, and I brought it to Italy. It took several months for them to carve that piece.
The bowl was done in one piece, and then the spiral was done in two pieces. And then it was all put together on site.
When I'm asked to intervene in a space and create something new for the space, what I want to bring to that space is what I would like to find myself in a space. It is a surprise. I would like people to come around the corner and say, what is this? Wow. It was a community involved with in commerce, communication, so there's a god for that. That's Mercury. So I decided to make the Mercury fountain. But this Mercury I made is not stable at all. I hired this model. He was like this, and I had to put pieces of wood attached to his arms and to his body for him to be in the exact position I wanted, you know. The economic situation was not good. He was trying to find his balance, you know. Mercury was unsure. There's a great feeling about fountains. A fountain is a source of life, is water. I like the idea of public art that's human, closer to what human beings really like.
I think that was the key thing, doing that fountain. It gives you a sense of place and makes you feel good.
Public art is a major aspect of placemaking. It lends distinction, identity, that sort of, I don't know why it's great, but it feels kind of different and cool to be here. So I think public art can offer all of that to a place.
Any evening, probably 10 months out of the year, where you sit at Mercury Fountain, the fountain's there, you see people gathered around it, talking, kids playing, and they may be engaged with the piece of public art and they're aware of it, but everybody in that space is feeling it. And that, to me, is one of the most wonderful things that comes with public art, the spirit of community that comes alive in a place like that. I began to think about public art in Reston, and the founding principles talk about art and beauty in our public environment. But to make sure that that continued, I began to pull the community together to do this.
Reston is very unique to have one singular advocate and visionary leading their public art program to continue on the tails of the successful work of Fonseca many years ago and to look differently at what would public art in Reston look like now in the 21st century. And I think they're off to a great start.
I was attracted to mosaics because of the solidity of the material. There's something about the sense, even though it's elusive, of the permanency of mosaic. If I had my druthers, I'd spend my life mosaicing. empty walls on highways and freeways and underpasses.
So all of you are going to make little stars that I'm going to place throughout the big mosaic.
Valerie Thaberge and her husband, they engaged the school, they engaged kids. The kids actually participated in designing the art along with Valerie. What more can you say about Reston than engaging our kids?
That's a key component of what IPAR is doing with public art, is creating ways for people to have a meaningful connection to the art making process and to learn.
We wanted energetic colors and colors that kind of represented colors on a flower, so we chose green, yellow, and orange.
We're going to do like a green rectangle. Okay. The smaller ones, and fill the rest in with red.
Okay. Well, the stars that the kids made were great, and it just shows you how unique and precious every child is, because each star was unique and precious. When the kids saw their work up on the wall, I mean, it was just the sense of ownership was very powerful, and the enthusiasm that they were part of this bigger project.
It feels really good. I feel like I've been a real part of something.
I have to agree with Noah. It feels like we really helped contribute to this.
When people approach the mosaic, I hope that they are energized and feel the sense of the power of life.
My hope for public art moving forward in Reston is that developers and members of the community continue to embrace beauty in public spaces and in our natural environments as we evolve over time to come.
I have more often asked, what's the point of public art? What's the point? Well, what's the point of anything that's fun? To the extent that we can increase the pleasurable experience of living for other people, we've done something that's really very nice, very, very good.
When Cornerstones was established in 1970, its founders recognized that even in a community where people are welcomed and are welcoming, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, or socioeconomic background, people could work hard and still not earn enough to support their families, that there would always be hungry people or people in crisis. Many in our community are just one unexpected life event away from living in their car or on a friend's couch or on the street. No one plans on being homeless.
My life before, I was the owner of a big pharmacy in Washington, D.C. In August of 2010, I discovered an embezzlement of several $1 million. And by the summer of 2014, I have lost everything. The house and my business. We have yet to leave the house in Great Falls. And in October 4th of 2014, we entered the Embry Riker Center. My first impression was a surprise. It was a pleasant surprise. The people were very, very nice. I got a nice welcome. And we got a nice room. And my biggest surprise was the food. There was a kitchen with 4 ladies cooking fresh food 3 times a day. And my biggest pleasant surprise was my case manager. He provided a lot of love and psychological support. And he explained to me all the services that Cornerstone is providing for the homeless people.
Our comprehensive programs provide stability to people in times of crisis, resources that promote empowerment for moving forward, and hope for the future. At Cornerstones, we meet people wherever they are, without judgment.
Now I have my home. My daughter, she's in school, she's very good. She's gonna go university. My husband, good job working. Now I'm thinking to go to university, to finish my university, and to find good job after that.
Providing stability is only the first step. Where Cornerstones is different from other organizations is in providing the gift of time and resources that continue after the immediate crisis has passed. Cornerstones empowers people to take the next step in what is often a longer journey to well-being through their own hard work and the tenacious support of Cornerstone staff, volunteers, and partners. And we see the difference that makes every day.
I become a citizen and I enjoy the class, and it's helped me also. My English is become better and I speak better now, and I understand also people when they talking. And after that, I interested and I help her in the class. When I become citizen, I still come every week and help in the class.
When we got the place, the Cornerstone has been extremely supportive to us. They furnished the house because I didn't have anything left. New beds, tons of food, and any supply you can imagine. My case manager came here, brought cleaning things, sheets and clothes and food. So the ladies came here, they fixed everything for us. So it was an easy and very pleasant transition from the shelter to this place. And I'm very appreciative.
These individuals can imagine a future they thought out of reach and can begin to make goals for a better future. Goals we all share for ourselves and for our children. Goals that are possible with the support and partnership that you provide.
Immediately when we moved to the community, we knew that Cornerstones was going to be an excellent partner and build a strong relationship with us. We've been very involved with the organization, whether it's volunteering at the Embry-Rucker shelter, participating in the Help to Homeless walks, and just frankly helping to secure affordable housing for those individuals living in our community. It's such a critical need to build a better Reston.
Cornerstones is proud of the role we play as a participant, convener, interconnector, and advocate, bringing people and sectors together to solve some of our region's most challenging problems. Our readiness program for job seekers has been adopted countywide, and with our business leaders, we're defining the skill sets needed for our current and future workforce. With Reston's Opportunity Neighborhood Initiative, Cornerstones is working along with our partners to see that all children thrive in a healthy start in life and are prepared to excel in school and career. And true to Cornerstone's founders, we believe that our job is to end homelessness, not just manage it, by developing housing that is affordable for people over their entire lifetime. Together with our partners, we have reduced homelessness in Fairfax County by 47%. We remain firmly rooted in the Reston community goals handed down by its founder. We apply the value that all may live, work, play, and serve in the many areas which Cornerstones operates today.
Cornerstone, it's a very, very important organization. Based on my experience, is providing a tremendous help to needy people. And I cannot express in words how appreciative I am for what Cornerstone has provided for me and my son. And most of all is, besides again all the material things we get, is the love and the attention we get from the case management.
It's like I'm become like now I'm doing things, I'm happy. Yeah.